few weeks ago, we began talking about Henry Nouwen's three movements of the spiritual life. The first was the movement from loneliness to solitude, and the second, the one we're addressing today, is the movement from hostility to hospitality. Now, I know that when I say hostility, you all just say, "Not me." Ah, right. I was talking to a friend this morning. She said, I don't think I would ever use the word hostile to describe myself. I said, okay, how about closed? How about unavailable? And she said, all right. And my personal favorite for myself is cranky. That's the word we use at our house. Is sometimes I'm a little cranky and sometimes I'm not as loving as I would like to be. This last week I went to a 50th birthday party, kind of a dinner, and the woman who was celebrating her birthday received a gift. And the title of this book was Why Can't We Be Good by Jacob Needleman. And actually it looks very intriguing, an interesting book about why we slip off, the place we want to be, which is the high spiritual beings, happy, joyful, welcoming, kind. We're not always there. And of course, he's kind of an academician, so he wants to know the why. And we spiritual folk who gather on Sunday mornings to inspire one another, we don't always check into the why, but we do ask ourselves the question, well, now that I'm here, what am I going to do with it? Now that I'm a crank on Sunday morning and I don't want to look at anybody, what am I going to do with that feeling? Has anybody ever been kind of there? No. All right then. All right. As always, we begin by telling it like it is. And that is that really, that kind of close, whatever we want to call that, we might not want to call it hostility. Let's just say close-mindedness. That sometimes that's where we are because we're human beings. And it's not fair to expect ourselves to be sweet and welcoming and happy and beholding the Christ in everybody all the time, because we don't. Right? This morning I didn't behold the Christ when I was driving down River Road, right? And I was this is a new route because now I'm coming from Tacoma. I came down River Road and this young, dear man just kind of cut me off. Really, like he almost hit my car. So I followed him to the Nissan dealer to wish him a good day. I really did. I of course, at first I didn't feel very loving and hospitable, but I thought about it by the time I kept thinking, now what if this was somebody from the church, How would I want to be seen by somebody that I know already, or no, somewhat. And so I pulled into the Nissan driveway and I said, good morning, I hope that your day goes better. And he was like, he said, have a good day. Like, get out of here, you're crazy, So I did leave, yeah. Anyway, sometimes the world is a strange place, and sometimes we feel like strangers in the world. And sometimes we feel like strangers who find a place in the world, right? We show up somewhere and we think, oh my gosh, there's other people like me. Somebody was telling me that last night, that feeling of belonging and of community. And for me, that's like the foundation of first century Christianity, is that idea that Jesus had, is that we need to learn to be hospitable to one another. Because there's always going to be people that need us. There's always going to be people that need to be welcomed. There's always, he said, the poor are with you always. There's always going to be an opportunity to reach out. There's always going to be a chance to open the door wider, or to set another place at the table, or to stop and listen, or just to sit with someone. As spiritual community, as brothers and sisters together, we found this place and we feel connected to one another here. So we have this vocation as community, and that is that we create a space where brotherhood and sisterhood is formed and experienced. So our faith and this idea of hospitality isn't just something that we talk about. It's something that we're supposed to practice. And sometimes we practice it more effectively than others, but that's part of the deal too, is that we accept ourselves. We notice that I don't always feel hospitable, but I'm aiming for more hospitality in my life. And when I see other people who are struggling, I do my best to reach out to them. You know, you've heard the whole experience, or the whole phrase, Southern hospitality, this idea that people get together for tea parties and big hats, and, you know, everybody is genteel and polite, and that's, I guess, hospitable. But there's a deeper hospitality that I'm talking about. And that's that first century Christian hospitality, that we don't only see it as our obligation, but we also create an opportunity for the guest. So if you are the host and you're someone, a guest comes to your door, it is our obligation to, as best we can, open the door, because it's not just for me to have an experience of being a good host. It's also about an experience of the guest being able to have a space, not only where they're welcomed, but where they can unpack their bags and share their gifts. So you see, the whole idea of hospitality is a two-way street. They have something to bring into your space, into your home, and you have a space to provide for them, okay? Creating community in this way is about a healing, both for the host and for the guest, taking us all from alienation to a connection. Because, you know, no matter how many times we have that feeling of not being connected, bringing us back into a connection with another human being is incredibly healing. It probably happens for all of us all the time. A couple nights ago, some friends of mine said, well, how can we help you kind of finish up this moving process that I'm kind of tired of talking about and hearing about and doing, frankly. And Rosie was packing. I was packing Rosie up to go. We just got the clothes washer and dryer up, and so I had to wash her clothes and get her packed, and she was left at 4 o'clock in the morning yesterday. So I said, well, I need to pick up some things, but I can't do it all myself. And so some people went and did that for me. And, you know, they got lost, and then they got lost, and then they got lost. At one point they called me and they said, do you know where Tenino is? And I said, oh, no. And she said, well, we're not there. Anyway, by the time they got back to my house, it was pretty late, and I just said, you know, I'm so grateful to you for doing what you did. And they just were like, they were my host. You know, they created a space where I could just be grateful. So they were the host and I was the guest. And our roles change all the time. Sometimes I'm the host, sometimes I'm the guest. Yesterday, when I took Rosie to the airport, I went by the newsstand, you know, where you think there'd be some interesting books or magazines, and I noticed a group of people gathered around the television set, and so I stepped up there to see what they were watching. There was a big group. They were watching our president, his speech from Cairo just the other day. And I thought it was for me it was an amazing experience. I only heard a little of his talk from Cairo as he was talking about U.S. relations in the world of Islam, and he spoke with a lot of respect, I thought, and hospitality from what I could gather. And what was amazing to me is that we were in an airport, you know, in the guts of an airport where people are fearful about their bags being taken, you know, where people have to go through high security and take off their shoes and everything else to, you know, make sure they're safe. And here we were gathered around this television set, and the whole focus was hospitality. How can we get along together and recognize one another, not just in our church building and not just in our workplace, but in the world? How can we experience together a spirit of hospitality on our planet, not the United States planet, everybody's planet? How can we do that? It was very moving, and people were obviously touched there. So here we are this morning, a band of sisters and brothers who live in this outer world of competition and sometimes suspicion. But we come together here because we know who we are inside, and we know our heart's desire to heal ourselves, to feed the poor, to heal the uninsured and the sick, and to connect. We're talking about hospitality in the whole world.